Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 22nd, 2014. I'm Steve Miller, and this is the Asia Brief. As dawn prepares to break in Hong Kong, here's a recap of yesterday's major developments. The big news of the day, of course, was the highly anticipated talks between Hong Kong officials and student leaders. Chief Secretary Carrie Lam, Hong Kong's number 2, represented government officials and pleaded with student protesters led by the Hong Kong Federation of Students to work within the system. She said, "We should work within the system and enhance the transparency and competitiveness of the system as a whole. This is a good opportunity and a meaningful dialogue. I hope the community will stay united." Alex Chow, one of the student leaders, responded, "Why did the people come out? People felt they had no choice. They had to come out and make their voices heard." Lam tried to de-escalate the banter by assuring Chow that their voices had been heard, not only by the Hong Kong government, but by the central government as well. But no matter how lofty the sentiments, you must take legal means. As expected, when the 2-hour meeting concluded, little was resolved. The students contend the government played Tai Chi and called the government's stance vague on how to move the process forward and called for concrete proposals. Lam said that today's discussion will hopefully be the first of several rounds of dialogue and reminded everyone that there would be no changing Beijing's mind. With both parties still on polar opposite sides of the issue, it's difficult to see how this impasse can be resolved. Hong Kong's chief executive Leung said he was open to creating a more democratic process for the 2017 elections, but that the final candidate vetting would still remain with Beijing. There is room for discussion there. There's room to make the nominating committee more democratic, and this is one of the things we'd very much like to talk to, not just the students, but the community at large about, he said. However, Leung angered many when he expanded on his remarks, saying that if the nomination process was free and open, it's entirely a numbers game at that point, and candidates would be targeting half of Hong Kong's residents who earn less than $1,800 a month. The comment made Leung appear elitist and uncaring towards the majority of Hong Kong's residents. The High Court in Hong Kong ordered protesters to clear roads at an assembly site in Mongkok on Monday. The order was sought by taxi and minibus operators, who said they have suffered losses as a result of the blockades. The High Court also granted an interim injunction to bar protesters from continuing to occupy the area between Tim May Avenue and Leung Wee Road. That application was filed by proprietors of the CITIC Tower, who complained that blocked roads have affected emergency vehicle traffic and threatened their safety. Both of these injunctions, the first to have been issued, expire Friday. A video surfaced Tuesday showing a teenage boy who ran away from Australia to join the Islamic State. The 17-year-old, who calls himself Abu Khaled, carried a rifle and directly addressed Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott in the video. "To Tony Abbott, I say this. These weapons that we have, these soldiers, we will not stop fighting," said the young man, whose family is from the southwestern Sydney suburb of Bankstown. "We will not put down our weapons until we reach your lands, and until we take the head of every tyrant, and until the black flag of the Islamic State group is flying high in every single land." Abbott fired back in a statement. "ISIL is a threat that reaches out to Australia and our allies and partners. That is why Australia has joined the coalition to disrupt and degrade ISIL in Iraq, and is giving our law enforcement and security agencies the powers and resources they need to keep Australia and Australians as safe as possible." To end this podcast on a bit of a happier note, Lonely Planet has named Singapore the world's #1 country to travel to in 2015. It noted that multicultural Singapore is always celebrating something, and has more reason to do so next year when it turns 50. And finally, North Korea has released Jeffrey Folwe, one of 3 Americans that were being detained. Officials say he is now heading home, but little information has been released regarding the specifics. Thank you very much for joining me today. Follow the Asia News Weekly Twitter and Facebook feeds for more news. The Asia Brief is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License.